It's not much longer of a wait for Sandfall Interactive's gorgeous role-playing game, Clair Obscur Expedition, launching on April 24th for Xbox Series X and S, PS5, and PC for $49.99, and day one on Game Pass. It's a title that many have had their eyes on since its reveal last year due to the scale, visuals, and combat. The premise involves members of the titular expedition setting out to slay enemies. Let's dive into everything else you should know about the title before launch. Characters and all-star voice cast. Expedition is a varied bunch, starting with Gustav, an engineer with a mechanical arm. Male, his foster sister who is younger than the rest but keen to see the world outside of Lumiere. Lune, a mage who seeks to know more about the world, and Seal, a teacher with a dark and painful past behind her easygoing nature. There's also Renoir, a mysterious man seeking to save his family under any means necessary, and Verso, a mysterious outsider tracking the expedition for unknown reasons. And while they're appealing enough, the voice cast really sells it. On the English side, you have Charlie Cox of Daredevil fame voicing Gustav, Jennifer English voicing Male, Ben Starr of Kazan bringing Verso to life, and the legendary Andy Serkis as Renoir. Of course, the local cast is equally star-studded, with the likes of Alexandre Gillet, the dub voice for Elijah Wood and Ryan Gosling across numerous films, Adeline Châtel, The Last of Us, and Céline Molyneux, Aerith in Final Fantasy VII Remake, and much more.
Won't yet understand. But this is a kindness, not a cruelty.
Unreal Engine 5 and art style. Despite the size of developer Sandfall Interactive, it leveraged Unreal Engine 5 to deliver some stunning visuals. MetaHuman is used for the character creation with cutscenes featuring motion-captured performances. World Partition drives the world map, and Lumen allows for a certain stylistic real-time global illumination.
Learn from the ones who came before.
And lay the trail for the ones who come after.
Turn-based combat. At its core, Expedition is a turn-based role-playing game. You'll encounter enemies on the field and transition to a separate screen for combat. Characters and enemies take turns attacking with a helpful order displayed on the upper left. You also have action points, AP, for utilizing skills, but there are several elements of action titles imbued in the combat. For instance, characters like Gustav can freely aim ranged weapons and target weak spots, dealing more damage. Skills also have QTEs, where proper timing ensures more damage, though you can turn them off in the options. Parrying, dodging, and countering. Parrying, dodging, and countering are also important. These aren't specific skills or passive benefits. When an enemy attacks, you can physically dodge or parry to avoid damage and execute a counter. If the entire team parries an attack, they all counter at once for extensive damage. And yes, From Software's Sekiro Shadows Die Twice served as a big inspiration for this, offering more of a skill-based and rhythmic element to defending. Unique playstyles for each character. Despite many common systems for each character, they all have different playstyles. Male, for example, has 3 stances: offensive for more damage taken and received, defensive for more damage reduction and more AP received on parries and dodges, and virtuose for inflicting 200% more damage. Lune inflicts stains on enemies, and when utilizing certain skills, you can consume them to trigger different effects. You can also assign different passive traits and obtain gear for further customizing builds. Attribute and skill points. As you level up, each character receives 3 points for upgrading attributes and 1 skill point to unlock new abilities. The former improves stats like vitality, might, agility, defense, and luck, influencing typical things like your health, attack damage, speed, damage reduction, and critical hit rate. Though they only start with a handful of skills, spending points in a character's skill tree allows for unlocking more options. Later skills require more points to unlock. But if you don't like your current setup, you can consume an item to recoat and essentially reset stats and skill points. Boss fights. Based on the previous demo that content creators and media went hands-on with, there are some pretty devious bosses to deal with. The Chromatica Best is one such bizarre creature that relies on ranged spells. Virgin is a hulking monstrosity that can inflict exhausted, preventing characters from gaining AP, and performs extensively long combos that require alternating between dodging and parrying. Remember that these are bosses from the opening hours, so who knows what other devastating challenges await. Main story is over 30 hours long. When you look at behemoths like Final Fantasy VII Remake, Elden Ring, and so on, Clair Obscur Expedition may not appear to be a long experience. However, it still will take over 30 hours to clear the main story, which is pretty extensive, and comparable to titles like Dragon's Dogma 2. How much of that comprises of cutscenes, dialogue exchanges, and so on is unknown, but it's a meaty story regardless. Side content. For those who want a little bit more bang for their buck or something to take a break from the story, there is side content which is comparable in size to the main story. Sandfall Interactive hasn't exactly outlined all different activities, but they should afford more opportunities to learn more about the world and its inhabitants. Exploration. Linearity is a common theme among previews regarding the game's levels. When you enter an area, it's extensively linear, but there are different optional paths to traverse, which contain tougher enemies, loot, and even some platforming. It may vary from area to area depending on the story, but you won't just be running from point A to point B in a corridor-like fashion. No minimaps in levels. Unfortunately, you won't have a minimap to guide you through these areas. COO Francois Maurice told Eurogamer recently, when there is a minimap, you can end up relying on it. And we want players to discover the world as the expedition does it. They don't have a map because every previous expedition failed. So yes, sometimes it can be difficult to find their way. Overworld. While levels have their own layouts that you explore from a third-person perspective, with the option to switch between party members while exploring, there's also an overworld map. It essentially links everything together and you'll traverse it in real time. You'll discover shortcuts and other secrets, and while it does warn about higher-level areas, you're free to challenge them anyway. And while there's plenty of on-foot exploration, subsequent footage has showcased craft for traversing water and even flying through the sky, airship style. A compass is also available for reorienting yourself more reliably. PC requirements. Even with how good it looks, Expedition hardware requirements aren't too hefty for PC players. On the minimum end, you need an Intel Core i7-8700K or AMD Ryzen 5 1600X, 8GB of RAM, and either an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1660 6GB, an AMD Radeon RX 5600 XT 6GB, or an Intel Arc A380 6GB. This is enough for 1080p 30fps on low settings. Recommended requirements include an i7-11700K or Ryzen 5 5600X, 16GB of RAM, an RTX 3070 8GB, or a Radeon RX 6800 XT 16GB, which delivers 1080p 60fps on high settings. A solid-state drive and 55GB of installation space are also mandatory across the board. 4K and 60fps plus on Xbox Series X. While resolution and frame rate on consoles have yet to be revealed, the Xbox Store lists 4K Ultra HD and 60+ FPS options, likely for the Xbox Series X and, by extension, PS5. There could be quality and performance modes that deliver 4K 30fps and 60fps, but we need to wait for confirmation. Difficulty options. Despite being inspired by Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, one of the most challenging games out there, Expedition has various difficulty options like easy, normal, and hard mode. Sandfall didn't explicitly outline all their differences, but it noted that playing on easy means you can succeed without even being a master dodger. Normal is also forgiving enough, but on hard, you need to dodge at least 50% of enemy attacks. The parry and dodge windows also change depending on the difficulty, further adding to the challenge. Hey, did you know that we at Gaming Bolt upload new videos every day? Stick around, drop a like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And let us know what kind of content you'd like to see in the future with a comment below.